there's an issue here that we'll talk about with black banks in particular, and that is that there is a financial divergence, right? There's a gap when it comes to the lack of financial control that bank blacks have. More so, the amount of ownership that bank blacks actually have compared to. Did I say bank blacks? Oh gosh.
Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to the Bank Black Dialogue, capturing the comprehensive Buy Black experience, touching on finance, ethics, and activism. So, you are in for a treat today. I am call her Sherry, and today we will be interviewing our host, Mr. Ben. So tell us about yourself before we get started.
Alright. Hello. Hello everyone. I don't know why I'm so nervous. This is weird.
It is different. It is so different.
It's different, you know? Being on the other side. Anyhow, hi everyone. My name is Ben. I am a recent graduate of Kennesaw State University.
Woo-hoo.
And I am an engineer by day. I also do photography on the side, and my all-time passion is constantly seeking new ways to further develop the Black community.
Awesome. That's what's up. I'm excited to get started. Thank you for taking the opportunity to sit in this position, right? We always like to hear what the creator has to say about it, right? So cool. The title of today's episode is What's the Move?
What's the move, bro? What's the move? Yes.
This episode is really meant to tie together those three big concepts, right? Finance, ethics, and activism. So before we dive deeper into that, let's start at the top. Why begin with banks?
Right. Excellent question. I'm going to answer that question by asking a few questions, right?
Okay.
So why start with banks? Well, let's ask ourselves, who manages your payments when you go to Walmart or you go to a restaurant to eat, right? Where do you go to get a credit line? Where do you go to get a loan to start your business, to finance your house for a mortgage? The answer is banks, right? The list goes on. There's a number of things that we need to do through banks, right? Banks serve as economic engines, right? They pump money through an economy, through a society. And by doing so, right, when banks do this, they are giving the community financial control and a sense of ownership of that control of how monies and subsidies are circulated within that economy, community, society. Those three words kind of intersect as we go on this conversation.
Yeah.
Now, there's an issue that we face today, though, that black banks particularly have.
Yeah.
And that is that there's a financial divergence going on here, which we'll talk about when we get into it, right?
Divergence.
Yes.
What do you mean by divergence?
Right. Great question. So, financial divergence, right? And actually, before I talk about financial divergence, I'm going to briefly define a term called group economics, right?
Okay.
That some of us may or may not have heard. Group economics essentially is when a group of people come together with a common economic interest. They actively and consciously pursue that economic interest so that they can create, sustain, and secure an economic future. Those words are, I'm emphasizing those words for a reason. So that's group economics, right? But there's a financial divergence happening, in particular with the black community, because there is a huge gap between the amount of money that black Americans spend and the amount of money black banks actually own. And that divergence prohibits black banks, those economic engines, from pumping money. And that's the crisis we face today.
Okay, so
Yeah.
touching a little bit on this divergence that you're speaking of, like, give me some numbers, give me some data,
Right.
like, run those numbers for
Right.
me.
I'm a visual person, right?
Right.
So let's look at some visuals. So the figures, right, and these may have changed, but based on recent reports, black Americans spend over $1 trillion per year across the board. On the flip side, black banks only own $4.5 billion. What are those? How are those two numbers related? There is a 99.5% gap between. So, by the way, 4.5 billion is less than 0.5% of 1 trillion. That's the divergence right there. So we have this huge number of spending power that black Americans have, but we have less than a percentage of what black banks actually own. And again, black banks in general are economic engines. So if you're not properly taking care of your engine, how can you expect to get anywhere? Right? That's the crisis we face today. Here's why. The black dollar circulates for only 6 hours before leaving the black community. Right? As a matter of fact, black Americans unfortunately are at the bottom of the economic totem pole. Other communities, we're talking circulating their dollar for 30 days, I think 20 days and 14 days, and that is the Asian community, the Jewish community, and the white American community respectively. Right? You have black Americans at the very bottom with a quarter of a day, 6 hours. And that's due to that $1 trillion spending power versus $4.5 billion in black banks. That's the crisis we face.